I'm making a video. I don't know where it's going exactly, but I think it's a third-party kind of video. So anyway, this, whatever, poker face Todd guy, fairly annoying, has offered me some cigarettes apparently. Apparently he wants me to post my address publicly. Anyway, I still can't, this is the power supply, right? This is what it looks like. What I'm looking for. I mean, how do you lose something? It looks like this. Anyway, I mean, it's really irritating. I mean, I know I have it. I couldn't have thrown, I mean, there's no way. I couldn't have kept 5 dead power supplies and threw one new one out. That wouldn't make any sense. It's illogical. Alright, so anyway, back to this shit. I really missed my other computer. Yeah, I'm down to 1 computer. I can't live with 1 computer. Not possible. Anyway, okay, to the subject. So anyway, me and Piero having this discussion. Okay, so yeah, I'd like not having to hold the camera, but I guess I'm gonna have to hold it. So anyway, I mean, the first thing this guy does, he's playing this conversation between me and Piero. So it's a conversation between me and Piero, which, newsflash, means that me and Piero have talked before. So there's things we say to each other where we understand what we're saying, so we say it, and it's understood. But anyway, that doesn't matter. He doesn't, he could increase the volume on it, and make it this mean something, but it didn't do that even. So anyway, so he just interjects, and so but he's not paying attention. I guess he couldn't hear the conversation. I don't know what his excuse is. But the point I was making is that, I was just talking to Piero about how all these disaffected voters, they have a lot of different agendas, from, there could be Klan members, there could be pedophiles, they could be cigarette smokers, there could be lots of different things, the minorities in the world. Okay, whatever. Like I said, all kinds of crazy shit, all kinds of legitimate shit. They could be, Jainists or some other pacifists or, all kinds of things. They could believe in, I don't know. They can just have lots of personal agendae, based on their perception of the world, and it's a minority perception, but it has no representation. And so they create parties like the Green Party or something, and the Communist Party, and these are just totally ineffective in terms of influence or changing anything. And so the argument I was making is that all of these people have a common interest in creating mechanisms in our democracy that give them their fair representation, at least let them sit at the table and advocate for their position. And because of the democracy we have, they're closed out. And that would rationally should be the first agenda of all the disaffected, would be to make modifications to the system that re-affect them, to give them back their piece of the franchise. Yeah, so that's the argument being made here, is a strategy argument about third parties. And so apparently he wants to argue about crazy people. Well, anyway, that's how I'll play. So that's how I've started my little segment by saying, just describing the list of disaffected people, and I'm getting to the point where I'm going to, say to Piero, well, the idea is to fix it from the top down, blah, blah, blah. But
they're misdirected. I know it'd be nice if you tell us specifically what you're talking about in misdirected. Most of these people have studied their chosen conspiracy, and they know it very well. And if you were to debate them about it, I think you would find yourself to be lacking.
Yeah, well, demonstrate that somewhere with some kind of argument. You're telling me you're just going, I think you're wrong. Well, fine. I think you're stupid. There. Are we done now? I mean, there's like I say, point out one truther claim, and I'll direct you to a website that'll debunk the fuck out of it. I've done it. I've debunked idiotic arguments. Okay? Then they're idiotic. And they're easily deconstructed. They're just, back to the magician analogy. But I mean, really, all truthers are, basically, are silly people who think the magician actually did magic. They're the ones who are preposterously ill-informed, and you can see that they are just blinded by their agenda, because even when you point out, you demonstrate decisively the flaw in their evidence, the flaw in their reasoning, they'll still use it in their arguments, because they don't care about the truth. They just care that they hate whatever they're attacking, and that's all they see. So again, if you're going to, I mean, obviously in this conversation with Piro, we didn't need to talk about how wacky truthers are, because we agree that truthers are wacky. Duh.
I can tell you why so many people follow Ron Paul. He is the epitome of what the establishment hate. I mean, he knows.
No, I'm the epitome of what the establishment hates. Okay, so you got it so fucking wrong. They love Ron Paul. Ineffectual whinies, babies, they love that. Give them the chairmanship of the committee that oversees the Fed, and they don't do anything for 4 years. Yeah, that's the kind of guy they love. So let's not pretend Ron Paul's an advocate for anything rational. I mean, he wants to do away with drug regulation. So he wants people to be able to pick herbs off the side of Interstate 59, okay, give everybody lead poisoning, and get away with it for free. I mean, he's an idiot, a lunatic. He doesn't believe in. He's a doctor, and he doesn't believe in evolution. So he's looked at paying. He's fucking looked at placentas and fetuses, and this fucker can't figure out its evolution. I mean, come the fuck on, retard. And then I don't even need to. You did a whole hour-long video on the Fed. I haven't listened to yet, but yes, I'll try to find the time to counter whatever silly argument you're going to make. But guess what? The Fed didn't decide to fucking borrow and spend. The Fed didn't break the economy. Paying rent to the rich broke the economy.
The information, and he's the guy that got us finally to have one audit, a partial audit of the Fed. So the reason that we know
right, a partial audit that means nothing. I mean, realistically, it means nothing in the scope of the economy. The fact that bankers, let's not even get into the detail, because I'll save that for another time, another video. But again, I'm going to argue that Ron Paul hasn't been validated on a single one of his claims. He's a lunatic. Abolish the income tax. The only rational tax we have. Yeah, let's get rid of the only good tax we have. And instead, well, I'm not even going to get into it. I mean, you're an idiot. I'm sorry, but I can only say you're an idiot if you're falling for the simplistic nonsense of Ron Paul.
Certain things about the Fed, because Ron Paul, you could call him the Snowden of the Federal Reserve.
Oh, please. At any time, he could take a camera just like this. At any time, as chairman of the committee, at any time, he could take a camera with him. He could go into the Fed offices. He could have gone into Fort Knox. He could have gone anywhere he wanted to and shown us all the horrible corruption. And why did he choose not to? Oh, that's right, because he wouldn't have found any horrible corruption. He would have found the same mundane corruption that exists everywhere.
Yeah, no, I totally agree. Well, one thing I thought...
All right, I won't play my part. I'll be back when he's talking again. Okay, so Piro just did the part where he suggested like a meta party where, you just try to fuck up the other two parties. And then as the conversation evolves, I get to my point, which is, the point is to have a party with just a really short agenda, no platform beyond democratic reform, because that's when we'll start disagreeing. Okay, so I have a common interest with white supremacists, in that our common interest is that we want a congressman representing us. Okay, so that's our common interest, and I respect their right. Okay, if you have 1 million people, if you have 1 million supporters in this country, you have earned yourself a congressman, and that's a fact. And they should have one, and I should have one. And so that's a common interest. Now, beyond that interest, we don't have anything in common. So beyond that interest, we can't belong to the same group anymore because, yeah, we want to shoot each other. And that's a fact. Literally, figuratively, any way you want to take that, that's right. We have absolutely, at least on my part, no use for that scum. But our common thing, the thing we should both be able to acknowledge, is that we respect the right to a fair fight. And that's all I'm saying. I mean, I don't mind losing, but I do mind losing a rigged game. So give me my fair try, give me my fair chance to charge the British Empire, give me my, at least a sword, give me something, some chance, okay? Don't tie my hands. And the system we have now ties our hands, chains us to the wall, and puts us in the dungeon. It gives us no capacity to show these liars for the liars that they are. To publicly humiliate them properly. That's the truth.
Separate the establishment in both parties and get the non-establishment to vote outside of the establishment's will. That would be...
That's not the point. See, again, it's not about voting. The third party's agenda has to be about becoming a relevant interest to the two-party system. You can't fix it from outside the system. You have to fix it within the system. You have to make the system reform. And the only way you can do that is to extort it. You have to grab it by the nuts and you have to twist. And that's what a third party has to have as its agenda. If you think you're going to get elected, then you're an idiot. Because the very system you're trying to reform has ensured your defeat. So that's just nonsense. The game is to become a meaningful, relevant interest. And you do that through extortion.
Great. Good luck with the Democrats on that. I would certainly go for that. And we've already done that with the Republicans. The Republicans have divided themselves. And you can see the Tea Party.
They've divided themselves in name only, and it means nothing. I can divide myself from the liberals by calling myself an ultra-liberal or a progressive. What's the difference? You're just giving yourself a title. The point that it just is, it's quite meaningless, as if in effect you're still running as a Republican. So you're still running in a two-party system. So what's the difference? Oh, that's no difference at all. That's what the difference is. So you're just missing the point here altogether. Like I said, the point is how to effectively influence the system, how to fix the system. That's the subject of this conversation, and you're not on the subject.
Party is outside of the establishment, and you say Tea Party, that it's a big brush, but it's a bunch of independent people with independent thoughts. It's not what the establishment
idiots
media paints it to be.
No, they've painted it correct. It's an idiots. So whatever. I think, well, I'll wait till his next segment. I think he's going to get to something here. I think. All right, so Pirro was doing his local thing again. We've had this discussion before with Pirro's, and he's still not quite, I don't know why I have to keep explaining to him. It's a structure that's broken, but whatever. It doesn't matter. And the fact that people have to be invested in a system, and if they're provided no choices at the local level or provided no choice at the federal level, it just doesn't matter. There's no choice. And again, the two-party system guarantees that most people, in my opinion, most rational people, will not have a choice because the two candidates have been shaped by special interest. They haven't been shaped by rational interests or honor or integrity or anything like that. They've been constructed to be sellouts. That's their entire purpose, is to be sellouts to their vested interests. And you have to become a vested interest if you want them to behave. It's that simple. You want them to move, you have to tie a string to them. It's just that simple. And the overview point is that you don't need enough people to win an election to influence an election. All you have to do is have enough numbers of committed people, and you can dictate terms. And it's a fact. 3 million votes can decide a federal election.
That is, when you're dealing with local politics, usually it's a snoozer. You only get a handful of people It's easy for them to manipulate because they have their supporters that get direct benefits from them. And, it really goes all the way up to the top this way. But on the local level, if we could get people to focus on the local level again, like it used to be, you're right. We could really do some changes. But
You can't do any changes from the local level. Your local politicians aren't in Congress. Your local politicians aren't in the state legislature. It's just nonsense. Local politics is for doing local bullshit that doesn't matter, and it doesn't matter in most cases. The only thing the local does is the school financing, and most of that is so regulated that there's not much you can do about it. But we reduced the $5 million budget by $38,000. Yay for us! I mean, that'll be the extent of your reforming victories on the local level.
problem is, everybody's focused on the top because that's what the media focuses on.
No, that's where the power is. Newsflash. That's where all the big law exists. Okay, so, whether or not our town has 3 fire engines or 4 fire engines is not really as important to me as whether or not we're going to waste $2 trillion in fucking Iran.
They don't even have the charm to make you think you're getting charmed. They're just like authoritarian potheads.
Or see, they're just following the broken game.
You think you can do it from the top, though?
You have to do it from the top.
Oh, I wasn't supposed to play that. Yeah, sorry, top down. See, I'm doing the top down thing. So anyway, I'll be back. Alright, so me and Piero have finally gotten to the point, which is this geographic bias, in our democracy, where we're represented based on where we live, not on what we believe in, and that it disenfranchises half the people, are left with no representation in every election, nearly half, and sometimes much more, but usually at least, sometimes less, but always, many times, substantially half the people, 43%, will end up losing their congressional election and not have a representative. Have somebody who claims to be their representative who is their antichrist, the exact epitome, the exact opposite of anything they would want, deciding their policy. So it's a way of disaffecting people, taking away their representation, not enabling them. The Congress is a great way to shut people up, not to give people a voice. So, in a system where you're always having the same election, the same majoritarian election, based on the demographics of a community. And so if you're not geographically segregated, you will have no voice. And so this guy's reaction to that is a preposterous proposal. But let's play it.
People have already divided themselves. I mean, take a look. People in California believe one thing, and then the people in Minnesota, each.
So he thinks our diversity is somehow reflected in state identity, which is, in my opinion, just absolute nonsense. The reason why people say there isn't a dime's worth of difference between the two parties is this very reason, that they're all baby kissers. They all have to say certain things, or you cannot get elected in every state. So there's very few states that a white supremacist could win in. Very few. The most basic, ideology will not be able to get elected in any single state. And clearly, by the Senate rules, the people of California only have 1/30 of the vote that somebody in Alaska has. So there's a terribly disproportion in the Senate in terms of representing people. They're not representing people, they're representing states, which is just, again, idiotic. So I'm say some more stupid things here.
Each state seems to be either red or blue.
Right, and again, if the Ron Paul and the other people who are saying there isn't a dime's worth of difference, obviously both the Democrats and the Republicans both sold out to the war. Where was the green state? Where was the don't have a war state? That's right, you didn't have a choice to vote for let's not have a war. So I think you're way missing the point if you think the subtle differences represented between the politics of Virginia and the politics of New Jersey. To say that because those states can one year be red and one year be blue, that somehow there's huge diversity. There isn't diversity represented. The same baby kissing sellout is going to get elected. The same let's finagle, let's cheat on the budget, let's come up with a gimmick to solve the problem, or will be the one who wins. So I think it's for your premise that states represent us, that I could move to some state and say, this is my kind of state, I think is idiotic.
And each state has more of one or the other. It gives people the opportunity to move about. Look, if I'm in a liberal state and I'm real conservative, it would behoove me to find another state. There's 50 to choose.
Well, see, you don't even get that right. If you actually cared about your politics, you wouldn't go to a state that was already your politics. You would stay in a state that you could convert to your politics. So if you were in a state that was 49-50, and the election was just going to teeter on 10,000 votes, then what you should be doing is going to states that are overpopulated with liberals, if that's your agenda, and you should be attempting to migrate them to the other state so you can turn it into a blue state instead of a red state. So it doesn't behoove you politically to over-consolidate. You don't want to be too segregated. If you're too segregated, then you're wasting your power. If all the black people were in one state, they'd have a lot less power, wouldn't they, bozo? Can you think a little bit about that?
He's from, a lot like Hero's doing here. Move. You don't like the place you are? Unlimited. Look how far he's going. Come on.
So you can go. This might be worth making a video about, just because it brought up a funny thought. Like let's just have a national moving day. So on one day of the year, or maybe let's just do it every 2 years, so it isn't too much trouble, right? And everybody just moves. We all decide, okay, let's move to the state that reflects who we are. Let's rebalance. Because we got unbalanced over the last move. But just figuring out the agenda of what the 50 states would be. And it seems clear that we need 100 states then. So we'll have to make some more states, because there's at least 100 nuances. Because I'd be like in the anti-dog state for sure. I mean, I want an anti-dog state, but I want a pro-goldfish state, and I want to, we can just go down the list. It'd be just kind of comical to make up this list of what you believe in and what you want reflected in your state. The state charter is going to reflect what you're for, But I mean, this is, so instead of just simply reforming a system to make it fair, this guy's answer is everybody should move. I mean, it's like if you have a 3-legged race and, there's a cheat and somebody has a huge head start, right? They're 50 feet down the field. Instead of the simple solution where you just say, hey, get back here to the starting line. No, instead, this guy come up with some plan like, well, why don't you tie some weights on their butt? And, then, and maybe you could put like a mud in front of him. I mean, he's going to fix it with some preposterous solution, when the simple solution is, you just change how we vote, and that way we are represented, and it makes it all fair. I mean, really. Okay, moving on to the next one. Alright, contact. So, me and Piero have had this discussion before, so we're taking some shortcuts here. We were talking about two proposals. One of them is instant runoff voting, and the other one is altering the geographic bias. The intent is to create proportional representation, meaning that the Congress would reflect the ideology of the country, not the ideology of the majorities in 50 states. So, it wouldn't be majoritarian dominated. It would be dominated by the fact that there are this many numbers. I mean, the black example is the best example I can offer, in the sense that we know that there's a a huge connection between a district that has high black concentration of population and the fact that they will have a black representative. And if they weren't segregated, that means if blacks didn't live in dense populations in geographic areas, the odds are they'd have far fewer representatives. And it's the same thing with an ideology. If an ideology is spread out over the whole country, something like cigarette smokers, and there's only 10 or 15% of them in each state, they're guaranteed to never have representation, because the dominant view is always going to, whether it's Democrat or Republican, is always going to overwhelm their minority status. So even though they could have 25 million people of that interest in the country, they are not given a single congressional representative. So this is about two subjects. It's about the fact that the Congress does not represent the people of the United States, and that the presidency, the third party, is only a spoiler and not an effective challenge to the system. And so you fix those two problems. You fix the spoiler problem with instant runoff voting, and you fix the lack of representative problem by just diminishing the significance of geography in establishing the composition of the legislative body. Legislative bodies should not be geographically biased, and they should not be there should be nothing to inhibit full representation, wherein every representative only represents people they voted for, not people who voted against them. No representative should be able to call you a constituent when you didn't vote for him. Yeah.
So the Aryans are going to be a minority. Anyone who's a truther is going to be a minority. So these people can't be part of our new third party, right? You can't have any of these people. If they're
So he just apparently didn't bother. I don't know how he could possibly be doing this without listening to the video previously. So he obviously didn't pay any attention to the video. The video was about that very problem, that people that have no common interest beyond their common interest as minorities, they have minority status. So theoretically, a black man who's a minority, let's say a black man who grew up in a ghetto, which makes him a special minority in the sense that he has a story, he has a circumstantial fact to his existence that is very different, that is unique in a sense. I mean, it is distinct from some other condition of life, some other exposure that would give you a different perspective on life. But anyway, beyond that, the argument is that that black man has the same interest in a better democracy as the white supremacist. They both have a common interest, and they should realize that the first thing they need to do is create the mechanism that empowers them, that gives them their fair representation. Without fair representation, they're talking to the wind, when they should have somebody in Congress talking their talk, advocating for them. And they don't have that option because of this system. So the whole point was, we're having a discussion about creating a third party that has the limited agenda of just enabling, giving fair representation to minority points of view, to break the two-party system. That's the real subject, that all these disenfranchised minorities have a common interest in breaking the stranglehold of the special interests that control the Democrats and the Republicans. And the effective way to do that is to organize under the banner of a third party and to use their status, their capacity to, their motivation to affect their change, their singular change, that they will bargain with the two-party system to reform the two-party system. So he didn't get the point at all.
if they're unhappy with politics today, can they join our party? Is our tent big enough to let them in?
Well, like I said, this isn't the purpose of this thing is not to be a tent. The purpose of this thing is to be a sword. and you use it and then you throw it away, kind of a thing, once the war's over. So it has a limited agenda. So once you've achieved the agenda, then you can go find a party that's a white supremacist party, and then you can be a black, whatever, advocate, revolutionary party, or whatever. You can go your separate ways once you fix the democracy. Once you've enabled third parties to have a voice, okay, then this party would have satisfied its ambition. The job would be done.
That's the question. Or have we decided that we're going to be very pure, and these are our issues, and we're going to stand strong on them, and if you don't come along with our issues, you can't be in our group. Sure, that's...
Well, again, the purpose is always about the purpose, okay? So you have... the argument is just kind of simple, that you have a limited purpose, have a limited objectives, and then you can have common purpose, and then you can have organization, you can have all these advantages. But if you're going to sit there and start getting more and more specific, well, then you're going to turn more and more people off, and you're going to have an ineffective party. You're not going to be able to influence everything if you're pissing each other off. So just keep it common. Keep the common purpose common, and keep it directed, and keep it focused, and then you can get something done. But there's no point in marching on Wall Street with and taking all of that generated energy and affecting it and pushing that energy at nothing that can change anything.
It's got to be the way, but we've got to come up with just a few issues. War. No war unless somebody's attacking us. End of story.
Well, again, you're kind of missing the subject, okay? The no war party, all right, can't effectively do anything in the current system. So you have to fix the democracy before you fix policy. That's the argument here.
Yeah, well, I think Nader...
Okay. Well, this is why I explain how Nader had 3 million votes he could deliver, for sure, and he might have had even more if instant runoff voting was in place. I would have voted Nader as my first choice. So it was only the fact that he was perceived by rational people as a spoiler that limited him to only 3 million people. So in effect, if the spoiler effect didn't exist, Nader probably could control 6 or 10 million votes. All right, so the point being made here is if Ralph Nader was smart, okay, not egomaniacal, he would have made sure he made a deal. He would have made a deal with one party or the other party. And he wouldn't have talked his 10 list of destroy businesses and tax this and make the ultra car and do all this. All of that crap was meaningless. The crap he should have fought for was instant runoff voting and proportional representation in legislative bodies. That should have been what he fought for. And instead he threw away any progressive hopes because he had a list way too long of way too impractical. And, so he made no deal. So he functionally made no deal and just got George Bush elected. I mean, he was a perfect storm of disaster for his own policies. Fact. Okay, moving on. Alright, so he starts his little spiel. He doesn't understand, right? So I just explained how Ralph Nader could move 3 million votes. I just explained what I just explained. And this is this idiot's critique. And it's just naysaying. He's just nitpicking because he's a little butthurt, poker-faced Todd. That's why. He's just like a truther. Okay, the facts are irrelevant. He's got to one-up some.
3 million people are going to vote Democrat anyway if they were headed.
See, I mean, you just don't get the point, do you? Oh, so they joined a party with the explicit purpose of breaking the two-party system, and you're saying they're going to vote Democrat anyway. No, the whole point is they're going to vote whoever gives them what they want, which is a guarantee of an up and down vote in the Congress on instant runoff voting. That's who they're going to make a deal with. Whoever gives them the best deal on that guarantee gets the votes. So the Republicans say, okay, we'll support it. We'll make sure it's an up or down vote in Congress. Okay, after a 1-month debate on the floor of the Congress, we'll put it to a vote up or down. Okay? So the Republicans could give us a better deal. And if the Republicans give us the better deal, we take it. We don't care about all the downside, because we know there's not a diamond difference between these fuckheads anyway, and we're going to get what we want, which is the reform that takes away the spoiler effect that means George Bush doesn't get elected the next time in the sham election.
Any inkling to vote Democrat, they're going to anyway, because the other option is the Republicans going to win. This is what the Democrats understand. They already know that.
Right. If they already knew that, then fucking Ralph Nader wouldn't have gotten George Bush elected. Retard. I mean, you really don't understand, okay? Al Gore got 2 million more votes in the election. He won the fucking election, jackass. And the only way he lost the election was because he lacked a few hundred votes in Florida, all right, which went, and if you just count the Nader votes, all right, bingo. So don't be lying. I mean, really. But again, the point I'm making is that Ralph Nader could have bargained, and he didn't. I mean, he did attempt to bargain, but his bargain was idiotic. I mean, he came up to Al Gore and said, do everything I want or else I won't, and Gore said, you're an idiot. Fuck you. I'm running for president, retard.
And the Republicans know somewhat. The Republicans got a spanking in the last election because the Tea Party and the Ron Paul voters, all the group of people that were disaffected, unhappy with their group, they said, give us a fair primary and then we'll vote. We'll stay in the party. But if you can't give us a fair primary, then we won't. Well, it wasn't a fair primary. We have all the evidence and the...
You have to prove that, right? Voting turnout was up, not down. So, I mean, for a second-term presidential election. So I don't know exactly what evidence you have of your theory that all the Republicans didn't show up. Yeah, I think that's bullshit. That's what I think that is. Yeah, I think that's absolute bullshit.
Proof of it, that it wasn't fair. And so you can't, how do you play in their game? Because remember, the primaries...
Look, it's a really simple equation, fuckhead. I spelled it out, and you're going to just say, how do you play? And they're the simple. You don't play their game. You extort them. Do you understand what a special interest is? And why does a special interest have clout? That's right, because nobody can offend it. So that's why cops get away with goddamn fucking murder, is because both parties are afraid of them. That's why the teachers union gets away with fucking murder, is because both parties are afraid of them. Alright, so let's just admit that when you have enough clout, you can scare these fuckers. And yes, you can't demand, the world when you only have 3 million people, but you can demand a lot. Okay, because I'll say it again, 3 million votes can decide elections. So all you need is to get to that 3 million number. 5 million would be great, 10 million is even better. But the higher you get that number of people who will be committed to the purpose and do what the requirements are, vote, hold their nose and vote for the shithead, because the shithead's going to give them what they want, then you can extort these two parties. You can own these two parties if you're a little bit clever.
Are inside their rules. The Republicans have their own primaries inside their own rules with their own committees, and if you try to take over their committees like the Ron Paul groups did, they took over committees, then you have state officials coming down on them and pulling the plug. You have people changing votes. You have all kinds of very irregular issues going on.
Yeah, well, that's the famous truther language. Irregular issues. Yeah, right. Bombs on the plane.
Because for many years they've had the power. They're vested in it. You're not going to win inside their party. You've got to step outside of their party.
Well, look, you've got the word right here, third party. I mean, you've got it right in the title. So I don't need this lecture, retard.
So you have your own party where you get to set the rules, and you get to decide who gets to come and talk.
Yeah, you can only do that when you actually win elections under your party platform. Okay, so first you have to have a chance to win an election on your party platform. And that's what the subject of this whole conversation is about, is instant runoff voting and creating a proportionally representation in legislative bodies. That's the subject of this conversation, and you are not on the subject.
But in order to be a party, it has to be huge. It has to be bigger than the Republicans or the Democrats. And that's not very hard because they're both so weak right now. Jump when, it's hot right now. Hit them hard.
Well, you're again missing the point. No, they're not that weak in the sense that the opposition to the two-party system is completely upside down in terms of the diversity of interests of the people who are disaffected is as broad as it could be. The extremes on the extreme right and the extreme left are both disaffected. Okay, and obviously the extreme right and the extreme left can't be in the same party for very long. They can when it's like a war or something. Like if America's attacked, well, they'll both fight in the war for maybe different reasons. It's that kind of thing. So they have to use this common. They have a common incentive in abolishing Democrat and Republican control of our government. They have a common interest in not having a sellout government to special interests. So use that common purpose, then they do number in the millions. I mean hundreds, maybe 100 million. It might be 100 million people who would vote if they had something to vote for. So keep it simple, stupid, is the message here.
Anyway, let's continue.
Yeah. Well, there's no point in you continuing because you don't listen very well. Alright, so again, I'm just talking about how if you have 3 million people, blah, 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 and Pirro says something like, well, he agrees, but whatever. So this he says, what kind of bargain? He interrupts in there and he says, what kind of bargain? The bargain is explained in the video. The bargain is, we'll vote for the Republicans if you don't give us a deal.
Another special interest group. Just one more group that the Democrats have to massage so that they can keep winning elections. So they've already got a whole list of people that they massage every year.
Yeah, so that should be telling you something. Oh, well, if I want power, I'm going to have to get on the list. Yeah, if I want control, I have to get on the list. And if I get on the list from the outside as a third party, then I'm not really creating a sellout situation in the sense I'm bargaining. And I'm saying I don't want to be you. I don't want to be part of you. I don't like you. I'm just telling you, you're going to lose unless you play ball.
And, those people do just what you're saying. They come to them and they say, listen, we're not going to vote your way. But the truth is, they know. You saw what happened with Obama. He had made a lot of promises to liberal groups in the first election. They did not get their promises met. Those people were very angry, but guess what? They voted for him the second time around. And yet...
Yeah, and only because they were more afraid of Romney. Okay, and that's it. That's the only reason. They felt some responsibility not to let absolute evil control the country. But they got nothing for it, right? They got nothing for it. So I'm just saying, my argument is just as simple: is if you're gonna sit there and play these games, we might as well play them where we get something guaranteed in the bargain. And if what we're getting is a reform of the system that never lets Romney and Obama happen ever again, that will never be stuck with shitty choices, well, then that's the something that should happen.
He may be meeting some of their promises now. That doesn't mean anything. The truth is, he's on his way out. So this is what he really is. He just couldn't fulfill it back then, because if he did, he would have, he wouldn't have got reelected.
Oh, well, that's just absolute nonsense. I mean, it's not that hard not to get reelected. But again, you're saying that if he would have actually behaved like a progressive and a Democrat, somehow he wouldn't have gotten reelected? Bullshit. No, it's that he's a Republican. Okay, Obama's a millionaire. He's one of them. He's not one of them.
The point is, we want, a big group, small amount of requirements, if you're going to run in our party, you have to sign the contract. The contract is that you're going to vote against any funding of any wars, and you're going to vote against...
yeah, whatever. That simplistic crap doesn't mean anything. And any funding against any... I mean, really. Do you think that's intelligent? Somebody intelligent's going to vote for that, even if they're against war? They're going to vote for the any-war policy? No, come on. Just stupid.
Here's a list of things that you're going to vote against. Here's the list of things that you're allowed to vote for. As far as other stuff, as they come up, you just have to not vote. So if something comes up and you're...
Again, you've just missed the entire point here. The entire point here is why are third parties irrelevant? You're saying that third parties should have their platform, they should do this, and that's exactly what they are doing and failing. The reason why third parties are disaffected is because third parties don't have rights. And so the only way you get rights is to get representation. So you have to have equal and proportional representation in Congress. Then people have to listen to you. Then you can make your argument. At minimum, at least you have your say at the table that matters. And that's a significant empowerment feature. I've never had a congressman in my life. Okay? I live in America, and I've never had a congressman I didn't perceive to be Adolf fucking Hitler. Alright? In my entire life. I've never felt what it feels like to have a representative. Ever. On any level of government. Have I ever had something in the legislature, in the state, or in the Congress that I felt was representing me? Merely because I live in a geographic district that's dominated by people who believe otherwise. And that's it. And that's not a good enough reason, in my opinion.
For it, but you didn't set it up in the primaries and let us know what you're voting for, then you promise that you won't do that. We don't want liberals to come in and vote for a bunch of liberal issues, because that wasn't the deal. The deal is we're trying to stop the wars, or we're trying to do this one specific thing, and we're focusing on that. That's what we want to do. And we can't break the logjam unless we can get enough people to come into the Congress and bust out, the parties that are in power.
Well, again, you're not going to win elections until you have free elections. So until you get rid of the spoiler effect, and until you have non-geographic elections, you're not going to win, okay? The anti-war people are still going to remain 30% in every state, okay? So even though there could be 60 million of them or 70 million of them, they'll never have a congressman because they're a minority in every state. Again, your whole segregation theory, do you actually think people are going to do that? They're going to move their entire family from a place they've lived their whole life merely for political actualization? I mean, you're an idiot to think that that's the solution, when this very simple solution is just to make the congressional representatives represent the people. Let it be affirmative votes and let it not be geographically dependent. Everybody, Jack Kevorkian, if he runs for Congress as a national congressman, okay, nationwide, you have 100 seats for Congress, let's say. So 100 people are going to get elected. And all you say nationally is once you have, 1 million votes, you get to be a congressman. Something simple like that. And that's it. It's not complicated. All right? So once you get your number of votes, you're a congressman. That kind of idea. So if Jack Kevorkian would have run as a national candidate, he would have gotten more than enough votes. He would have been a congressman. But because he has to run in a state, a narrow state, he can't win because he's only going to have a 30% or 25% support. Again, this is not representative democracy. We're representing our geography. We're representing where we live, not who we are. You can't see how that's fundamentally broken. That the representatives in Congress should be representatives of our beliefs and our ideology and who we are, not a representation of where our house sits. You can't see that? God. Stupid fuck.